As one Redditor said very well,
barking is not a peaceful sound. It is absolutely awful to listen to, and it is harassment.
Greetings. The idea to do this video has been reinforced just about every day for about the last 2 weeks. Because you see, I currently live in an area where they allow dogs, as many of us unfortunately do, and it is impossible to find a neighborhood or apartment complex with a strict no pet, or at least no dog policy, isn't it? And unlike with other pets, I unfortunately have to see and hear dogs on a daily basis, despite not wanting to. But one of the worst ways in which they announce their presence is by barking simply because you are walking somewhere. I constantly hear dogs barking when there is no reason for any device or living creature to be producing such an infernal racket. And in my life, I've walked by countless dogs while they were on porches, inside houses, behind gates or fences, in backyards, or inside automobiles. And every last one of them has barked its fool head off at me simply because it saw me. No other reason at all. In one case, one of these detestable vermin had already been going off because a laborer was doing some work across the street from where that wretched bark bag lived. And then, when I turned the corner, it focused its barking on me as well. And actually, there were 2 of these bark bags there, not just one. Now tell me, dog nutters, honestly, what else behaves in this manner? This is the part where dog nutters start talking about other loud things, but none of those compare to barking, not even close. More on this in just a minute. I titled a previous video,
"It doesn't matter why dogs bark. They just need to shut the hell up."
Because it is true. At the end of the day, it doesn't even matter why this mutant barking is a phenomenon. It just needs to stop. But the reality is that there is no good reason for it at all. Dogs bark the way they do because they are defective and dysfunctional. Nothing else in the animal kingdom displays this abrasive and pointless behavior. And just think about it. How could it possibly be prudent or wise to loudly announce your presence in the wild in such an aberrant fashion? Wild wolves are actually capable of barking, but they seldom do. Genetically, dogs are the mutant descendants of an unfortunate species that humans have selectively bred into behaving how they want. As a result, dogs are hardwired to behave as no other animal naturally does. At least 2 different dog nutters have tried to convince me that dogs bark for legitimate reasons, or that dogs are aware of why they bark, or that dog barking serves a purpose of some kind. So let's get one thing crystal clear. Dogs bark because it's an instinct they have. They have no earthly idea why they bark, but they are obviously compelled to do this. The relevant point is that they do it, and it is unacceptable, because it is an obnoxious and dysfunctional behavior that's out of place in modern cities. Human settlements in general, really, especially in otherwise peaceful neighborhoods in towns and cities. Barking is a most odious impulse and habit. There is perhaps no better or more effective illustration of this than the example of dogs that bark all day, or which bark at neighbors for simply being in their own yards. Some say that lack of training and failure to correct this behavior is the reason behind the excessive barking we often hear. If this is true, then what we can infer from the fact that dogs everywhere are wrecking communities by constantly barking is that very few dog owners, if any, are doing whatever it is they are supposed to be doing to prevent dogs from becoming a problem for everyone around them. But I'd like to go back to the subject of dogs barking at you when you are on your own property. All barking is trash behavior and unacceptable, but when dogs specifically bark directly at you while you are on your own porch or your own backyard, well, that is just the worst, isn't it? Imagine getting threatened or shouted at for being on your own property. Of course, we don't have to imagine it because many of us have directly experienced this. Dogs are obviously too stupid to understand the most basic social expectations, and they have no idea what property lines are. And if this isn't evidence of this fact, I don't know what is. But it is obvious that there is nothing dog nutters will consider valid criticism if they continue to defend this most odious and brazen behavior. It seems these vulgar apologists will turn a blind eye to the fact that these mutants will often bark at people for checking their own mail or for literally just stepping out into their own yards. And I mean, the very second you open your own back door, the neighbor's terror support animal, what we should probably refer to dogs as, is barking at you as if you are in the wrong. Perhaps it is fitting that dog nutters would gravitate towards a so-called pet that behaves like something that would be employed as a tool for gaslighting. After all, dog nutters themselves employ gaslighting in what they probably imagine passes for dialogue in their warped heads, telling you that barking isn't a problem, or that you must be imagining it when it's clearly everywhere and a commonly recognized problem, or trying to make up ridiculous excuses for dog attacks. In other words, these people know the reality of these terrible creatures and have no defense of them. So instead they just attack your character, or change the subject, or try to make you question your own reality by saying ridiculous and unbelievable nonsense. Some dog lunatics will even go so far as to try to tell us that dogs communicate through barks. But the reality is that dogs will bark as soon as they get triggered, whether they are alone or not, and even when there are no other dogs around. They will bark the same way at a person walking by as they will over a lizard on the fence. They aren't trying to tell us anything, they're just defective mutants that have this reaction towards anything and everything.
Now for some much-needed contrast. How do we humans and other animals actually communicate?
When we communicate, we do so through the use of ever-changing words and expressions. We have countless languages and dialects, and even our gestures, facial expressions, body language, and vocal nuances like tone and rhythm can carry subtle meanings critical to effective communication. Human language is constantly evolving. But what do dogs do? Birds use call notes that range from chirps to squawks and other sounds. Songbirds will change the tempo, pitch, and tone to produce sounds that are reminiscent of human melodies. And what do dogs do? Whales use a variety of sounds to communicate with one another, and these may include clicks, whistles, and pulsed calls. There is actually something there, and they do not make one specific kind of sound in response to everything, like dogs do. You might remember this comment from a while back. First, I will replay it, and after that, I will respond to it.
People are noisy. Fireworks, music, shouting, drunks, noisy at all hours. You obviously don't believe in God, or is it your religion that makes you hate them? Why would you not like
dogs?
Strange people. Get a grip. Wish some people did not live that long.
1. Dog barking is a problem, regardless of what else is as well. Dog barking is not suddenly a non-issue, just because there are other problems in the world. 2. How does bringing up something completely different resolve the problem of dog barking? It doesn't. It's just a distraction. 3. Many of those things you mentioned are different from dog barking and not nearly as bad, nor as ubiquitous and infernal. We'll come back to this point. I hate people who play overly loud music to where it bothers their neighbors, but I hate having to hear dogs barking just as much, if not more. It's possible to care about two issues at once, but obviously every different kind of complaint can be voiced separately. This is a forum for expressing our frustrations with dogs and their enabling owners. It is a place for us to discuss these distinct issues, caused only by dogs and nothing else. Barking is just one of many problems dogs cause. You say people are noisy, but most of the time they are not. Fireworks are only a thing for a few days out of the year, whereas dog barking is a constant source of a most dreadful and distinct form of noise pollution. As for music, this is seldom as persistent as dog barking. And, as I also said already, it's a problem as well. Which does not mean we pretend that neither is an issue. For the most part, the only time people are noisy at all hours is when they have dogs that they allow to bark all night and day. As for your strange comments about religion, it is dogs themselves, and often their owners, who make me loathe both the presence of dogs in society and dog culture as a whole. It is not anything else. It isn't the lack of something either, except perhaps the peace and quiet, safety, and sanitation standards we are deprived of because dogs are alive. I hope the point has been clarified.